Welcome. It is Friday, January 16th, a very cold January 16th in South Florida. For any of you guys there in South Florida, stay inside, turn the heater on, and put on about 3 jackets. It is too cold. It is about 45 degrees right now. But hey, it's a Friday, and the Miami Dolphins still do not have a head coach, and the direction of their head coach search is getting more and more interesting as the days go on, because now the hiring process has started. The first domino has fallen off the board. The first dude has fallen off the board. The main dude has fallen off the board. The guy that we all wanted, the guy that everyone wants, the hottest head coach candidate, John Harbaugh, has been hired by the New York Giants. Seemed to be his likely destination as the days went on. They have a quarterback. They have a young core, and he probably wants to stay up there in the Northeast. And that is the main guy that we all wanted. But now, why Mike McDaniel got fired and the way he got fired is becoming more and more interesting. And, he had that after the season press conference where he went over and he said what he needs to work on through this offseason, which of course is his halftime adjustment, that he might be used as a resource for the GM search because he knows some of the guys in San Francisco. He's worked with those guys that were on the GM hiring list before he hired, of course, Eric Sullivan. But then he got fired, and it was unexpected. We were all of us Dolphins fans, everyone who keeps up with the team, was expecting Mike McDaniel to return as Dolphins head coach. I was even expecting him, and I was mad about it. I wanted McDaniel fired because if we're going to go get rid of the quarterback, get rid of the GM, we might as well get rid of the coach. And that's why I agree with the Mike McDaniel firing. But now we have Darren Waller on the Johnny Manziel podcast saying how Mike McDaniel got fired. And it seems like he got fired in just the awkward fashion, in just the unexpected fashion. That was like how we were unexpected. Here's what he had to say.
The exit meeting was that Thursday morning, and he's like, definitely want you back next year, and we're just like reflecting on the year. And then Stephen Ross kicked the door in, and he comes in and like joins the conversation. We're just all talking, reflecting on the year, and then the conversation kind of hits a lull, and I'm sitting across the desk from Mike. Stephen Ross is standing there just kind of looking at me like,
it's time for you to get the hell out.
I looked at Mike. He was like, we'll finish this conversation later, because I didn't know they had the GM search was in full flow. I didn't know what they had big business to talk about. Like, so I go out the meeting, I go downstairs and get a massage. I come up from the massage, check my phone. He's fired.
So clearly Mike McDaniel was expecting to continue as the Miami Dolphins head coach up to the very seconds he had the meeting with Stephen Ross, which seemed like to be an unexpected meeting, because why would you be meeting with a player when you know you're going to meet with the owner in that time slot? What to be an unexpected meeting up to seconds. He thought he was going to be the Miami Dolphins head coach. He thought he was going to be returning as the Miami Dolphins head coach until Stephen Ross unexpectedly hit him with the "you're fired," basically. Or we're moving on in a different direction. Now, what I think it is I think that the GMs that he was interviewing wanted Mike McDaniel gone. They did not want to deal with they did not want to inherit a head coach. They wanted a fresh start with the organization. Like, they're going to get a fresh start at quarterback. They wanted that fresh start with the head coach. They're a fresh start with a new organization. They wanted the whole clean slate. They do not want any of these inherent variables that everyone else has had to inherit from the Miami Dolphins. Like, Mike McDaniel had to inherit Tua, Chris Greer. Brian Flores had to inherit Chris Greer. Adam Gase with Tannehill and all of that. Like, it's just been a continuous cycle of passing down at least one part of the last regime to the other. And in this case, we finally went clean slate. I agree with that. That's probably what the GM also wanted, and that's why Mike McDaniel was fired. But this also does show the the direction Stephen Ross doesn't have in his head. He doesn't have, he didn't have a plan coming into his offseason. His plan was to do the same shit that we've been doing for 10 straight years, which is have someone else inherit one part of the last regime that clearly didn't work and just got fired. He wanted these GMs to possibly inherit Mike McDaniel until he finally sat down with the GMs and was like, okay, now I'll finally do it. He clearly had no plan going into this offseason. There was no plan of a head coach. We all thought with Mike McDaniel getting fired that the only reason he got fired possibly was to go get John Harbaugh, because that was a day before that John Harbaugh got fired, and then we saw the report that there was a team that had a head coach that possibly contacted him and all of that, but then reports come out that the Miami Dolphins didn't even contact him. They didn't even get the interview. That's how in rough shape the Miami Dolphins are. And it's not only disappointing to hear that, of course, but it's also disappointing to know that your owner, who this was supposed to be the offseason of change, the offseason of rebuilding because of what the catastrophe that unfolded this season and even the season before that, he didn't have a plan. It clearly doesn't have a plan now. We're interviewing a whole bunch of coaches right now. Salas, Clint Kubiak, the list just keeps on fucking growing. And it's like Santa Claus is naughty or nice list with 3 billion kids in the world. We're interviewing every single head coach. There's not really a direction. Now you can see the direction of being a leader of men. Yeah, there's all these tough neck head coaches, except Salah. I don't think Salah's a leader of men at all. But these tough coaches that we're hiring, Stefanski's and all that. But we're still hiring. I mean, not hiring, interviewing new coordinators that want to be head coaches, aspiring coordinators to head coaches, which has not worked for the Miami Dolphins. It's worked for everybody else but the Miami Dolphins. So then you look at that, you're like, maybe, but I don't know. We got to have the right hiring. And I hope it's the GM that's in control of it right now, because Stephen Ross, clearly coming into the offseason and for his whole tenure with the Miami Dolphins, has had no sense of a plan, of a good plan, just to rebuild the Miami Dolphins totally. And when it comes to Mike McDaniel firing and the way he was fired, I think that's very sloppy of the Miami Dolphins, as I said. But the problem is the owner, he has no real plan. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. And that's the facts. That's simple as that. And it sucks for Mike McDaniel that he was fired that way by giving such false hope. And, he probably, okay, I get one more year with this team. This is my year. I'm going to do all these things to rebuild, revamp my offense, revamp my coaching style, revamp my coaching philosophy. And then he's fired like that, which sucks. But hey, he's getting head coaching looks. He's getting offensive coordinator looks at big jobs. So he's not going to be out of a job for sure this upcoming season. And that was a terrible way to fire a head coach for sure. But I feel like the Miami Dolphins are now finally doing the right thing, and hopefully our new GM, John Eric Sullivan, can lead us into the right direction himself, because you cannot leave it up to this owner that we have in Stephen Ross. Terrible. Fucking terrible. Other than that, I got nothing else for you. The Miami Dolphins continue to interview a fuck ton of head coaching candidates. Robert Saleh being the latest that they just completed an interview for yesterday. We had Jesse Minter. There's a laundry list of dudes. Jeff Hafley. I'm just scrolling through the list. Kevin Stefanski. And just a whole, I know Clint Kubiak just got one. Just a whole bunch of possible head coaching candidates for the Miami Dolphins. And I don't even have a certain one that I would want. If you do have one that you possibly want, commented. I'm interested in seeing the reasoning behind it, because I don't really want a new aspiring head coach, a first time head coach, coming off of a coordinator job. We just had that. We had that before 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 that. We had that every single year. Every single time we hire a coach. Why don't we try to get an established guy, maybe that has a second go with things, that would do things differently? Not Jesse Minter. Never mind. I meant not. I was thinking of Brandon Staley, but I don't want the first time head coach. I was thinking like Matt Nagy, something like that. Mike McCarthy, even he's not even a second time head coach. He would be a very tenured coach with multiple stops under his belt. That possibly Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year. I was thinking something like that. But if you have anyone, but the thing is, if you look at Ben Johnson, you look at all these other guys, Mike McDaniel that got hired last cycle, those guys are first time head coaches in the second round of the playoffs already, in their first or second year. It's like, what do we do wrong? Why do we always have to hire the wrong guy? And at this point, you're starting to think it's definitely has to do with the entire organization, starting up top with Mr. Ross, as you're seeing now with the way he handled the firing of Mike McDaniel. Other than that, whatever. It's always go Fins, and this week, of course, go Canes, baby. Let's go beat fucking Indiana.